If you can bring yourself to the point where you can create, you have the ability to actually do something and not just think about it.
But yeah, I mean, Scott, I'd love to, well, just talk about, your history, about how I know you've been in the Hollywood industry for a while, actually, because I know that you acted in Bad News Bears and, was acting at a young
Wow, you know
age.
everything.
Yeah, of course, as a podcast host, I got to do some research so I don't look like I totally don't know who you are. But I think it's amazing that you went from acting and then into writing and directing and then executive producing and then into branded content and now podcasting. And I think it's this
Right.
evolution of creativity. So I'd love to learn more about that evolution and how you got into Firestone Productions.
Sure. Well, I came out to LA to work on a show called Hard Copy.
Mhm.
Um, People don't really remember that show anymore. Do you remember it?
Oh, I remember
You
that
heard of
show.
it? So that definitely ages me a little bit. I don't even bring it up anymore because people don't know the show. But I came out here and then I worked for Entertainment Tonight, and I worked on shows like Sightings and Penn and
Mhm.
Teller's Bullshit, and joined the Directors Guild and wrote a film called Wish You Were Dead that starred Carrie Elways and Mary Steenburgen and Gene Simmons and Christopher Lloyd um, and then um, spent a couple of years at VH1. Worked on some of the original Behind the Music, did a lot of series there, and worked at Extra. I mean, I just bounced kind of show to show, and while all my associates were getting into reality, um, reality shows, and shiny floor shows.
Mhm.
That's about the time I started Firestone Productions. It's also about the time I started Family, which was a good coincidence because, when you work on those shows, you don't have a life.
Mhm.
I was working on a show for Fox called Mr. Personality, and it would be 1 a.m, and they'd be like, you know what, let's throw out Act One and start again. And I'm like, let's not. Let's go home and
Mhm.
sleep because, you know, the Fox executive is going to throw it out at 8 a.m. anyway, right? So let's rebuild it then. And so anyway, so then I had, and I got a couple good core clients, and started doing something on a corporate level, and
Mhm.
gradually watched all my friends and associates, you know, in that showrunner world. And I did run a couple shows
Mhm.
occasionally. I did one for Fuse called Popped, which was a music series, which was a lot of fun, and a couple others. But doing the corporate thing is really a lot, and it doesn't have the glamour as doing, going out to a restaurant and, in Sag Harbor interviewing Billy Joel for Behind the Music. It doesn't have that quite prestige, but it's a hell of a lot easier. And
Mhm.
you're appreciated because you have that broadcast network in a corporate world, and those people look to you, um, look at you differently. You're not you're they defer to you because you
Mhm.
have the experience that they don't. Whereas if you're working with EPs and execs and supervising producers and all that, everybody's trying to swing their dick around, and
Exactly.
they
Give
all
their
have
notes.
similar experience.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that because I can see how going from the executive producing world and producing world in TV and then going into corporate, it's like jumping into another like another sea of like opportunities. At the same time, it's trying to figure out who you're swimming with and are they going to actually know what you're talking about? Because in the corporate world, how was that transition? Did you feel that your creativity was appreciated, but at the same time, you were given the freedom to do what you wanted to do? Or did you find yourself butting heads with anyone, any notes about getting the certain corporate message told by a certain video?
I wouldn't say it was butting heads. It was very much like TV in the sense of you start with a new client or a new show or a
Mm-hmm.
new producer, and you're starting from scratch. So You got to show you know what you're doing, right? You got to impress. Every gig is a new gig. Every, you know, you're only as good as your last project, et cetera, et cetera. So when I go out and shoot something for a new client, you know, it's just like a show. You're kind of figuring out the landscape and doing the best within the confines of it. I think that um, creatively, you know, it utilizes a lot of the same skills, interviewing and writing and messaging and all that. But it's the same thing. It's not creatively butting heads. You're basically trying to give them what they want. You know what I mean? And I feel like I've always had a good sense of marketing. And you know, the first question I'll ever ask somebody when they want a bid or whatever is like, who's the audience, right? I mean, it's so obvious, but like, you know, is it internal? Is it the company? You know, some companies have so many people. That's like viewership. Is it you know, B2B? Is it brand awareness? All that stuff. So just kind of getting the best out of people, making it look as beautiful as possible. And you know, I find with a couple exceptions, they're much more deferential. So there's not a lot of headbutting. There's a lot of appreciation. And I've had a few clients who have been trying to tell me what you know, they hire you to be creative, and then they want to stifle you or tell you what to do. And I've had one or two cases where, and it's very uncharacteristic of me. I'm just like, you hired me because I'm creative. Don't question what I'm doing. You know, I'm doing something that you're going to think is cool. Like I remember I wanted to do an interview in a car for this like semi-documentary for this fashion company. Like, why are you doing it in a car? I'm like, because we want it to feel real. We want it to feel like TV. We want it to feel cool. And now we're into this thing where everything needs to look like it was shot by, you know, somebody on Instagram and an iPhone. So, I mean, I can't tell you how much stuff I have to tone down at this point. I've got all this beautiful, you know, gear in my production closet, and it's like, well, can you make it look a little shittier? Can you make it, you know, 5x4? Can you make it grainier? Because that's what people want to see. They want to see, you know, organic, homegrown looking stuff. Not entirely, but a lot of my, that's probably been a bigger adjustment for me than anything is recalibrating to create, you know, social media, internet platform stuff, and to give it that look that is what people come to expect, want to see.
Yeah, I'm doing this, I'm producing this series for this show for HBO for this streaming platform, and they were telling me, okay, just, you know, go and you know, find equipment for the celebrities they have to interview, and let us know what you need. And I give them this whole shebang of like, oh, we need to get, you know, this type of camera, and we should do it in 4K, and then when we down res it, it'll look great. And then they were saying, why can't they just shoot on their iPhone with a ring light? And so now it's like we're shooting with iPhones and a ring light. And to
This is before
me,
COVID?
this is right now, actually.
Okay. Well, now it's a little more understandable.
It is, and it's. I think from a filmmaking point of view, and also just being in the industry, and just someone who loves the quality stuff,
Yeah.
to know that I'm going to be producing a show for HBO, and I'm going to have to put on an iPhone ring light selfie cam footage up there, right next to really well-made films that are shot.
Right.
On
They're
your
shooting
Lexus.
with Aries and, you know, $200,000 lenses, and you're like, you know, your iPhone 11.
Yeah, and it's just weird because I think with a lot of the people who are asking for videos, they always ask the same thing, like, okay, so how can we make this for social media and get a bunch of views? Because my son has done so well on TikTok. So how can we hire you to create a really cool TikTok video, but make it look great, but also make it look organic? And, you know, be creative as you want to be and be innovative, but stick within these lines and make sure you don't say these certain things. And it's this balance between, okay, be completely innovative, but at the same time stay safe and within the rules and boundaries that we set for you as a brand. And so for you, I've always, as a, you know, coming from the TV world and the filmmaking world, and then going into corporate videos and branded content, what are the different creative processes that you see, as in with TV and films, and then now with corporate or even just with digital and branded content?
Well, I mean, everything's different. A lot of the branded uh, TV shows, branded web series that I've worked on, they wanted to emulate a broadcast. Like I worked on this thing for AT&T called The Pact, and it was kind of a hidden camera show, and the inherent tie-in was that the camera was the hidden camera. The phone was the hidden camera, and so it was improv artists with with scenarios, first dates, audition, stuff like that. And so we had a loosely scripted thing. So that was very much like a show I would, do on TV. And then we did one for Hyundai where it was an ARG, and so we were shooting. So it was a tie-in with the show Burn Notice on USA,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was the actors from that series, and we shot these interstitials where they were going to Las Vegas to foil a heist. And so we were shooting like beautiful running footage of the cars like we would do for a commercial. We were shooting green screen stuff for the for the dialogue and for the challenges. We were doing flash gaming elements for some of the games, for some of the challenges. And so and then there's like give me a 15 seconds of somebody talking to camera on their iPhone, so it's like it's all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see how things shake out because we are all becoming so Zoom savvy, and
Mm-hmm.
a person talking into a web camera at 720p over 100 megabit mega connection has become sort of the norm for us now.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, correspondence, stars, everything. So that's only going to, dumb it down. And by dumb it down, I mean just like lower the production value.
That's right. And so as it starts lowering, do you also see yourself having to justify budgets, as in justifying, that because the quality is lowering down, doesn't mean the budget should be lowering down? Or do you see, like in the branded content world, in the video production world right now, because of Zoom, because of TikTok, budgets are lowering, or because people's expectations are down? Or do you see people still keeping the same type of budget and asking you to be the creative type and being okay with paying that, to be creative, to come up with the idea, but still having to down res and downplay it because
Right.
it's what's popular?
Well, I think budgets continue to shrink. They do. But it's been a lot more impactful for bigger companies. By bigger companies, I mean, I have a friend who's the head of production at Saatchi in New York, and they're used to they're going from $1 million budgets to $75,000 budgets,
Wow.
And so for them, that's a total shift because they don't have they have all this infrastructure to do this beautiful stuff with jibs and dollies and aries and actors and set design and all that stuff that you just can't do. So I would say that, I've always been sort of, I haven't done, a lot of my stuff wasn't super high end. So that kind of helped me. I could deliver a lot for not as much. But as this progresses, sure. And, you choose your project. Someone says, I've got, $10,000, I've got $5,000. Then you decide, can I make any money at it? Is it interesting? Can I do something of interest? A lot of my work is philanthropic and charity. I'm doing stuff right now for the Alzheimer's Association, for ALS. American Heart Association is one of my clients. So, they're not big budget clients, but you can do some nice stuff for them. And some of their pieces are really nice. A lot of them don't even broadcast. A lot of them are for fundraisers. And, I mean, everything ends up online eventually and lives there forever. But as you were saying, getting it to 1 million people is easier said than done. I never promise, I always say that Blockbuster, a viral video is like write me a blockbuster book, make me a blockbuster movie. Like, okay, that's lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, make me trolls. Can you
Yeah.
make me trolls? No, it's I remember when I was in YouTube and I was getting into a lot of the teaching brands about YouTube optimization and branded content, it's always that question: what's the formula of a viral video? And there's just no formula. There's sometimes it'll
There
just
isn't.
be a cat eating a watermelon and it'll get 5 million views, and then you'll have someone who spends $5 million on a really slick, commercial. No one's gonna watch it.
Yeah.
So there's no real formula. And so for you, coming from the world of TV and film, like, do you find it a little frustrating, as in like knowing that with TV and film, like it, at least when you create something, you create it for a company that, or like a studio or a network, and it's like, okay, I'm going to create something great for you. You're depending on the ratings. For you, it's the ratings, and then of course box office receipts. For online, do you feel like there's more pressure to get more views, or was there more pressure when you were in TV to get ratings, or pressure when you're in films to have box office receipts?
Well, the thing is that when I remember when I was working on strip TV, doing daily stuff for ET or whatever, it's just it's such ether. You spend 5 hours or 5 days working on a piece and it airs and it's gone forever, right? Now nothing's gone forever.
That's right.
And so that's kind of cool. But it is a little bit frustrating if you get a call from like Syrian doctor, they're calling you and they want to do a video about Sam's Syrian American doctor, whatever. I did a video for them, and I'm like, well, hell, am I going to take their money, that they could be
Mm,
using to feed babies to, you know, cut a video that 6 people are going to see? So I always want to find out if they have any kind of social media savvy, or they have, other their, if their internet platform gets enough, their website gets enough traffic that it will behoove them. But it is weird because it's like, I don't want to make a video for nobody, and I don't want to take your money to make a video for no one. So
mm,
let's figure out a way to get it out there. But at the same time, I can't promise you 100,000 people are going to see it. I'm very transparent about that. So, but people still know the value of video marketing, and people still appreciate things that are well crafted, even if the production value is lower. Um, you know, it's still like it's storytelling, and it's music, and it's hitting marketing points, and it's still a bit of an art form.
mm-hmm. And for you having a producing background and now dealing with those type of budgets and creativity, balancing all of that, when you write something for a client, like an idea, a treatment, a mood board, do you have the budget in mind, and that influences your story, or do you feel like you just create the story and then you chop it down according to your budget?
It's probably a little bit more of the first, because
Mm-hmm.
you kind of get a sense when you get an RFP, or somebody reaches out to you, of what kind of scope the
Mm-hmm.
project's going to be, and you have to be aware of that, because you can't overpromise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you want to over deliver. You don't want to overpromise, and so I think you do kind of have to scale it um, to the project. Which
Mm-hmm.
is, with this kind of stuff, it's just how many shoot days, right? How intense are the motion graphics going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Who do they want to narrate it? Just very practical considerations, because I know what my team's costs are, but it's those variables
So
that
how
make
you,
it.
no, that makes sense. And I mean, for now with the team, do you now, when you went from TV and film and started your own company, how was that transition from being the creative who had, of course, your boss and your supervising producers, to now being that supervising producer and boss and having to run a team? How was that transition? And what have you learned about being a leader and how to really lead a good team to make an awesome product?
Well, when you're running a show, you're still pretty much, the creative onus is on you,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're creating the opening graphics. You're creating the format. You're booking the talent. You're hiring the producers. So in that sense, it's not that different. Um, when you're doing it for yourself, it's just you wear more hats, right?
Hmm.
Um, I usually do write my own stuff. A lot of Whereas if you're working on a show, you might have a writer's room.
Hmm.
For these things, the scale is not such that we did for a couple of the web series I worked on, but it's just you're just managing your own thing. It's better because it's your baby, and ultimately it's not about what time slot they put you on, or what exec gets fired the morning you're supposed to air or supposed to go into production. It's more about making sure the client feels listened to and uh, you know is like blown away by what it is. And sometimes it's ambitious, and sometimes
Hmm.
it's something that you can do in your sleep.
Hmm. And now that you're working with nonprofits and different corporations, when you're talking to them about this new digital landscape, and a lot of them are still thinking about commercials, what is your process with some of these companies when it comes to their goals and the creative and the vision? Do you, of course, like ask them what are they trying to achieve, and then figure out the script around that, then come up with a budget, and then into production? So what's your workflow and what's your process when you're working with a
Well,
client?
it's all over the place because
Yeah.
somebody, BMW might say we're doing a training, series, and we need actors and we need to shoot at the dealership, and here are the storyboards, and then you just have to execute. And then there are people who don't know what they want at all, and you have to hold their hand and sometimes do their job, and sometimes help guide them to a logical, decision making. And so it's completely different,
Hmm.
per project. I think a lot of times people in corporate don't know what they want.
Mm.
Well, people in TV don't know what they want either. But people in corporate really don't know. It's a little bit of magic to them. Whereas people
Mm.
in TV oversee a half a dozen shows.
Yeah.
And so if they see a cut, they know if it's shit or not, or
Yeah.
hopefully they do. But if you're selling widgets and you hire someone and they make this beautiful piece about the widgets and it looks good and it's exciting and people have energy and you're excited. I mean, you have a much more captive audience, a much more
Hmm.
invested audience, um, than broadcast traditionally.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just a different animal.
Yeah.
I can't say I don't miss it.
Well, I think that with the way that it's going with a lot of the entertainment and the content, it is all coming online and being on, streaming and being on these streaming platforms. And I feel like everyone is just all getting crunched into a smart TV and your iPhone, and it's all
Yeah.
just going to be streaming. And so,
Well, formats are changing so
mm-hmm,
fast,
mm-hmm,
and the last, when I first started, we were like, delivering on tape and DVD, and now
mm-hmm.
I don't want to get up within 100 feet of a DVD because they're archaic and they
Yeah,
they don't look good. And so
yeah.
this whole COVID thing happens to coincide with gigabit internet and Zoom somehow magically having the bandwidth and the ability to accommodate with very few hitches
Yeah, it's been a
school,
yeah, school.
business meetings, podcast interviews. I
Yeah.
mean, it's remarkable. We're the world is completely shifted to a to the ether without question.
That's right. And then actually now you've started your new frontier, which is podcasting with Poddreams.
Right.
And let's talk about that in the evolution of how you went from features and TV and then branded content and corporate videos, and now into podcasting and creating this fictionalized news show. So talk more about this show and also why you decided to go down this road.
Sure. Thank you for asking about this show. It's called Poddreams, and it's basically um, news stories where the good guys win,
Mm-hmm.
and the bad guys get punished. It's a bit of liberal wish fulfillment. So it's not for everybody in these highly divided times. But so basically, the concept behind it is all my career I've done biographies behind the music. So I did JFK Jr. for Lifetime. I did Sean Connery for Bravo. I did news magazine stories about you name it, prison interviews, you know marijuana eradication project, you name it, dozens of stories. But all those stories were confined by the truth.
Mm.
So I had to tell the story. With this, I'm able to fictionalize the story. And especially in these times where, every other news story is another destruction of a norm, breaking of a law,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, spitting on the Constitution, and it seems to get worse and worse. I feel like it's always been a battle, but I feel like we're losing it. So in my podcast, Trump gets emperor's new clothes by this GOP fire and brimstone Republican at a Make America Great, Make America Open Again rally. So it's this fictionalized story about this Republican senator who, through 3 words, magically changes history by sort of making people, even on the far right, realize that they're being hoodwinked. So it's along the lines of McCarthyism, like, have you no decency, sir? And then my another story is about these women who work at a .com startup, and there's a lot of character development. They're very different women, all played by actors. A very realistic story, but fictional. And they get molested, basically, Bill Cosby, think Harvey Weinstein. And instead of laying down and playing the role of victims, they get revenge in a very entertaining and hopefully gratifying way. So I think it's a bit of just news mixed with fantasy. It's a different kind of genre. Another one that has to do with Black Lives Matter and about these 5 really bad gypsy cops who are abducted and basically forced into slavery. And so it's a woman who looks into what happened, the mystery of what happened to these 5 cops. It's an allegory. So it's an incredibly creative outlet. I've been writing screenplays and scripts for years, had a couple of them made, but these are things that I can actually make and produce, and and use a lot of sound design and fun editing, and it's just very fun and great and gratifying, and it's starting to get some traction because I think it's a genre that people don't, that really it doesn't exist. Like, think Serial or This American Life, but the stories are kind of fabricated. But especially in this day and age where I think so many people are horrified and apoplectic and scared, and want decency to prevail to some extent.
Yeah, no, I actually want to listen to your podcast after this because it's something that I haven't heard, and it's extremely original. And I love the idea of the fictionalized news stories, but you have different episodes. And so how many episodes are you planning? Is this going to be 13? Is it going to be 7? How many are you planning, or are you just going to go for good 52 in a year?
Well, I've been writing like I've never written in my life.
That's amazing.
So the first one is called Enough of You, and that's about the senator, the closeted senator who changes history. That's 2 episodes. They're about 20 minutes each. And then the other one is called The Trident. The 3 women in the video in the radio play call themselves The Trident because they're taking on New York before they get fall victim to this guy. That one's 5 episodes and runs over an hour.
Oh wow! Okay.
So I think they're going to be as long as they are, and I might have like fictional little interstitials, but the radio play is a fun format. There's this thing right now with Blood Ties with Josh Gad and Gillian Jacobs, and it's full on storytelling. It's full on radio play and with sound design, and they're fun. but this is like that, but kind of a little more rooted in reality. Although I think some of them might be a little bit more fantastical as they evolve. And I'll just keep cranking them out and hope people start listening to them.
Yeah, well, it's cool that you've seen the freedom. I mean, it sounds like you have so much more freedom now with this new type of format, and it's giving you an outlet for your creativity. And so, how has it helped you, just personally, now that you're able to just create and are able to just create without any restrictions from a client or restrictions from a studio exec? And really, it's just about how much you like your own writing and how many viewers or how many listeners are listening to it. How does it feel to
Well,
be creative and have that freedom?
it's incredibly liberating. And as I said, writing has always been torturous for me, and I think it's helpful that these are shorter form. Although, like I said, the Trident is well over an hour. I had no idea it was going to end up that long. But I think what listeners might find interesting is that I think the reason I'm writing more easily and enjoying it more is because I know I can produce these. You write a film, you know the slog ahead of you to try to get actors attached, to try to get somebody interested, to try to get a producer, to try to put together a marketing plan, a budget, a breakdown. So to be able to write this and know that I can, call my acting troupe, the people I've put together to this ensemble, and I can record it over the phone and start cutting. It's very liberating. I know that I can actually make this. So I think I'm just thinking about this now, but I think that's a big part of it. And
Amazing.
so it's really fun, and it's also topical. And I'm also frustrated as hell by the inequality and
Mm-hmm.
and so it's a really good, especially in these COVID times, it's an incredible outlet for my frustration about the constitutional squashing and women and being marginalized, and Black lives and the shootings. And I mean, there's so much to be upset about.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you can do to express your feelings is really gratifying. And with this, it's not necessarily in an echo chamber. It's going to be in an echo chamber, because if you're a Trump fan, you're not going to like enough of you. But it's not bitching with your girlfriend about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually
Mm-hmm.
creating something that has something to say and is creative, and maybe even has a moral, and maybe even will make you think.
I love that, because I think that you found therapy through creativity, which a lot of people do. I find it through shooting through a lens and DJing. And so a lot of people find it through painting. A lot of people find it through music. And for you, it's writing. And I think that's beautiful that you're able to do it with a voice that's actually politicized, so that you can actually speak on topics that you're passionate about.
Right.
And now that you're creating this new format, how do you get into your creative flow? Or do you do a lot of research? Do you just not turn on the TV anymore, you scroll through Apple News and look at the headlines and just get ideas? Like, how do you get into your creative flow to write something like this show?
I walk.
Nice.
Um, when I'm in the office, well, first of all, when I'm busy with Firestone Productions, I'm not thinking about it, or I'm germinating ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. I think that's the core of the question. Is like, where do the ideas come from? Where does the creativity come from? I sort of I find a thread of an idea, and then um, I will often go for a walk, and I tend to think in dialogue. So I will start creating the dialogue in my head. And rather than the story driving the dialogue sort of drives the story. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'll think about a woman going to a prison to face the cop who killed her husband for no damn good reason, right? And I'll think about what that scene might look like. And as I write it, more ideas will sprout. So then, okay, so maybe there's some redneck who made a documentary about these cops who got kidnapped and enslaved, and he was very, white, taking a very white supremacist angle. So she goes and sees him, this black woman, and so I just sort of create these scenes. I've always been stronger at dialogue than story, but I'm starting to change that. But yeah, it just comes to you over time, and you got to be patient, and then you got to sit your ass down and write it down before you forget it.
That's right. And actually, last question, because I know that you're a busy person, is when you, what was advice you would give to a lot of creatives out there, artists, writers? Let's stick with just creative people in general who are feeling down from COVID, negativity always in the news, what's going on in the world, and don't feel the creative urge to create, or they feel unmotivated to create. What would you tell them during this time where they're feeling stressed and whatnot to, I guess, deal with that and then just not even think about being creative until their mental health is better? Or do you feel that creativity will help them get through tough times like this?
Well, I think that we were talking earlier about how your creativity is confined to your immediate circle of people, and I think truly creative people have the desire to reach a wider audience and to share their talents, and if they're lucky, their gifts with others. And I think that's what's so frustrating about being a musician, being an actor, being a writer, is no matter how talented you are, the hard part is first creating the art and then getting it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so think how frustrating that is for actors. If you're a really strong actor, but you have to wait for someone to write the part, and you have to have the agent to get you an audition, and so it may never happen. So you spend your life really frustrated. And then you throw COVID in the mix. And I'm not going to say the cliche is just do it, just go out there, because that's not easy when you're hurting, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're suffering. I think that one thing to remember is that we do have resources that we never had before. We do have iPhones, right? We do have GarageBand, and we do have, Pro Tools, and and so if you can bring yourself to the point where you can create, you have the ability to actually do something and not just think about it. And of course, writers have always had that option. They've always had that blank piece of paper. But I never thought I would make a podcast. I never thought that I would be doing audio design and telling stories that way. But it's really helped me through this time, because I can be creative doing something new and telling stories in a way I never could before, because I didn't have the wherewithal to go out and shoot them. So I think you just have to be innovative, and you have to take advantage of the toys that you do have. And once you spit something out into the world, you feel so much better. Sing a song, write a haiku, just do something if you possibly can. Take a walk and try to see what comes to you. I mean, I'm not certainly not the one with all the answers, but stay strong. It's very hard.
That's actually great advice. And a lot of the other artists and creatives I've talked to on here, they've always talked about jogs, walks, rock climbing, for me, martial arts, whatever it is, something physical that gets the blood going. It helps you with your creativity.
You got to get out of your space, and you
Yeah.
got to swing your arms a little bit. And, as you walk, it just creates a different space, because we just sit here and we feel sorry for ourselves, or we worry.
Mm-hmm.
If you just go out the door with it, even if you have to have a stupid mask on, maybe it'll clear your head a little bit and make a little room for creativity.
That's right. Well, Scott, thanks again for having a great conversation with me. And before we go, just let everyone know, where can we find you? Where can we find Poddreams and yourself online, and how can we support you?
Oh, well, thank you. You can find Poddreams at poddreams.com, PODDREAMS, no space, PODDREAMS.com. It's also on all the platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Overcast, etc. and firestoneproductions.com, and has a ton of my work. I even have some of the older stuff on there, and that's going to make it very easy for you to find me. But please listen to Poddreams, and I thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
No worries. And I will definitely listen to Poddreams after this. So thanks for getting on this Zoom call. And now just enjoy the rest of your day. And hopefully the guy is working on your shelf can now be louder.
No, he's gone. He was here just for a second. But send me your stuff too. Okay, send me a link to your podcast, and I will of course listen to it. And any of your work that you want to share, and I'll shoot you back all my links to it.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Scott. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Haven podcast. And if you dig it and like what you heard today, please give us a nice review and rating and share it with one of your friends that you think needs some creative inspiration. You can always find more content and resources at thecreativehaven.com, and hit me up on Instagram at Mitchell Doomlau. And if you want to reach out, collab, or ask any questions, you have my permission to slide into my DMs. So keep positive, continue to learn and hone your craft, and create all day. Salamat.